I'll be asking you over and over again to listen to your internal world. We spend a lot of time listening, paying attention to, noticing the external world, all the shiny objects that we might want to own, or how our space is looking, or the facial features of other people, or whether somebody is driving too fast or driving too slow, the price of food. We're often just over focused on the external world, where actually we have very little control. It is a struggle when we go inside to put some kind of order to the voices we hear, our nervous system responses, our emotions, our memories, our muscular responses. How do we put some kind of order and meaning to them? And inner child work does allow that to happen. And this is a quotation from John Bradshaw, who instigated a revival of inner child work basically in the 1990s with his book called Homecoming. And he says 3 things are striking about inner child work: the speed with which people change when they do this work, the depth of that change, and the power and creativity that result when wounds from the past are healed. So we're going to just start to touch on how you can do beginning steps to heal your inner child experience. And one of the first steps is awareness. And the ACE score is an incredible tool. 10 years of research went into a questionnaire given to about 30,000 people. 30,000 people reported their childhood experiences. The wonder of this instrument is that it takes less than 5 minutes to fill in. First part of taking a look at interstate ego states is that we want to know that actually we're reparenting ourselves. Our parents did the best they could with what they had. And I don't know any parent that can attend to their child's needs every minute of every day for a lifetime. That just is not realistic. So I remember a woman who would never ask for help from other people, and that was really creating a problem for her in her life. And it turns out that she had a memory of when she was 3 years old, and she was put in kind of an enclosure, sort of like a playpen, and her finger got caught, and her mother was vacuuming in the house. So her mom was vacuuming, the vacuum was very loud, her finger was caught, and she was crying and screaming for help. And her mother didn't respond. And that woman, when she was 3 years old, made a decision: I can't call out for help. So many of our major decisions and functioning in the world are unconscious. That's why it's difficult to do this work. So that sense of, I can't ask for anybody for help, needs to be reparented to have a voice of authority. And as an adult, that voice of authority becomes our own, to say it's okay to ask for help. There will be somebody there for you. So by reparenting our inner child, we can release and heal the pain from the past. Now, in inner child work and parts work and ego state work, the you of you is not a part. It is your authentic, call it your spiritual self, call it your authentic self, call it your wisest, best self. It is the self. So there needs to be an I of I am. I am. And at the end, I call it Patricia Morgan. So I am. And parts are pieces of us that represent parts of us. So this is considered the essence. Oh, many people have lost the essence of, you hear phrases like this: I've lost the essence of me. I've lost the core of myself. I've lost the spirit of myself. I don't know who I am anymore. When I hit my child and I was an early child educator, I did not know who I was. I felt lost. And you'll hear people say, I felt lost. So we want to be clear that when we say, you, please notice this part, We're talking about the essence of you, the wise adult part self of you, doing the noticing. Janina Fisher, who does an incredible amount of trauma work, and I took some training from her, she says, allow the adult of today to walk into that situation and do what you would do today. So now I invite you to feel your feet on the floor and let your eyes get heavy. Let whatever you're sitting on support you. I want you to feel supported. And I want you to go, this is the first step we're going to do. I want you to go into your internal world. Take a deep breath. Let the breath go right down and out your toes. Very good. And I want you to just notice your heartbeat and think to yourself, I am. I am here. Let any thoughts that come in your head, just notice them and let them go. If you're feeling any sensation, tightness in your stomach or any other sensation, just notice this sensation and let it go. And take another deep breath and think, I am. And now I want in your memory, I want a memory to come up of when you in your wisest self made a good decision for yourself. You made a wise decision for yourself. Might have been during tough times, or it might have been a time you were inspired. Just notice, see, hear, and feel the personal power of a wise decision that you made for yourself. Maybe you made it years ago. Maybe you did it recently. And just know that as an adult, you do have choice, you do have personal power, and you do have personal control. But as a child, we often didn't. I want you to bring the sense of that wise adult self into the rest of the time that we're going to explore this whole world of the inner child. So come on back and I'll do my next slide. All right, now we're going to explore the basic 3 ego states of the inner child. Got a quotation here from, the Vietnamese monk Thich Nhat Hanh. Just by holding this child gently, we are soothing our difficult emotions and we can begin to feel at ease. So the first ego state is what's called the natural child. The natural child. This is that child that is playful and curious and a delight. I want you to go deep, deep inside and just hold your arms, fold your arms, and do just a little rocking motion here. And I want you to imagine, and I don't know who it was, but the first person who rocked you. You were born into this world perfect, whole, and complete. And you came through your mom. Your bio mom is the channel you came through. And somebody first held you and gave you a gentle rock. I just want you to notice that natural baby, that natural child, totally lovable, lovable. Not too capable, can't do much, but absolutely lovable. Okay? So tuck the natural child, that lovable child, somewhere in your body. Might be your heart, might be in your mind, might be in your arms, I don't know. And open your eyes. The natural child is curious. It knows its needs. It knows when it's hungry. It knows when it wants its diaper changed. It knows when it wants to play. It creates, developmentally, it moves into wanting connection with lots of people. It starts off with just wanting mom and maybe dad to have connection with. And then somewhere between 2.5 and 3.5 wants to start saying hi to other people and cheerful and happy. And then we keep that natural child somewhere available and adoring. Yeah, I'm lovable. Yeah, in us. And here's me. Well, you can see in my face, I think I'm pretty adorable. But then what happens? This is a very crucial part of inner child work, is most of us are walking around with what we would call a wounded child. And that wounded child shows up. So when I was yelling at my children, when I smacked them, that my wounded child was really hurting. And the wounded child represents unresolved emotional pain. It represents abuse, and it represents often giving up or defiant, definitely fear. Fear is in the wounded child, because the child comes into the world just curious and exploring and just being so authentic and so lovable. And then either a teacher or a parent or a grandparent says something or does something that squishes. And I feel guilty for some of the things I've said to my kids, the wounded child. And I just want you to close your eyes for a minute and just see if any of these resonate. So here's some of what we hear with the wounded child is, there's something wrong with you. You can't do anything right. You're such a disappointment to me. I'll be very gentle with yourself. Just know that these are wounded people wounding children. No one cares what you think. You're nothing but a burden. You're more trouble than you're worth. And then there's the other lines that sometimes burden children. You're my whole life. Nothing matters to me other than you. You're the only one who cares about me. And some parents think they're doing their kids a favor by saying, you're my best friend. Well, that's a burden on kids. I need you so much. You have to help me figure this out. That's not a kid's job. I have a granddaughter who ended up being what we call a parentified child. And other messages. It's your responsibility to make me happy. Yeah. And you better earn my love. Those kinds of lines. Yeah. And then, of course, there's all the abuse, verbal, emotional, physical, sexual abuse, and neglect. Not getting the basic needs met affect the wounded child. So, again, feel your feet on the floor. I just want you to gently close your eyes and just notice where your wounded child might live. Now, mine lives in my stomach. I get a knot in my stomach. And sometimes my face gets flushed when my wounded child is so embarrassed or scared. And it's the wounded child that is the hardest work to do. But I'm just going to do a little bit more about the wounded child. I started to notice a wounded child in here, and then comes the adapted child. So what happens is environment starts not to be safe, emotionally safe, and or physically safe, and or sexually safe, or verbally safe. And the adapted child starts to have this fear. And the adapted child then is older than the wounded child. Although we could still keep collecting wounds, I think I started to adapt to my environment. Now there's healthy adaptation. Healthy adaptation is I start using good table manners at the table. I start going to school and sitting in my seat like the teacher tells me. But then there are other adaptations that are not healthy. They're healthy for the environment that I am in. to keep me safe. So the adapted child says, I will keep you safe. And that is basically hiding feelings or letting feelings, exaggerating feelings. I'll give you some more examples of that. Here is an adapted child. Here is the face of an adapted child. I am somewhere between 16 and 17 here. And people think that I am a shy young teenager. I am not shy. I am scared. My jaw is almost clenched tight. So this is what happens. And notice the sparkle in the eyes and the face have gone. Yes, this is me. I thought blondes were prettier, and I used sunlight soap in my hair, and it went a weird red. You should see in this picture. So, all right. And I just want to go through the signs of the adapted child is active. And here we've got a quotation again to support us. Even when we try hard to be good parents, when we are not being loved by our own inner child, we are teaching our children to be unloving to themselves. So the problem with there's so many problems with the adapted child, but we need to thank it. I thank my adapted child for squishing my anger towards the abuse I received, because I would have got a lot more bashed and abused if I had told my father to back off or behave himself or any kind of assertiveness. I actually started to develop very bad posture because it wasn't safe to look him in the eyes. So I started shrinking as I started to get taller. So I appreciate my adapted child. But then when I'm with a very gentle husband and children, then these same coping mechanisms or a response to the coping mechanisms, squishing my anger all the time, and then it explodes when I'm safe, ends up being problematic. So the adapted child has these adapted learning feelings. And I don't know about you, but I have never met a baby that feels guilty or shameful or superior or inferior. What are some other, I've got a list here of some of the, illogical fear or worry. Does a baby feel resentment? Do we have babies that are suffering anxiety attacks or depression? Do we have toddlers that feel envious because another toddler's got a better bottle, you know? So these feelings are adapted feelings that are used in our culture often to control one another. So when I start to feel envious of other women or other mothers, or if I feel superior, or I feel inferior, I spend a lot of time feeling inferior. These are not natural feelings. And then self-destructive behaviors. Oh my goodness, the list is exhaustive. So not willing to ask for help is a common one. Reject attention and care of others. Try to control or micromanage. I tried to control my children. I tried controlling them. I tried controlling my husband. Pursuing more money, more attention, more prestige. Fibbing, making excuses for my poor decisions, blaming others, blaming myself. These are all learned self-destructive behaviors. Hoarding is another one. Habitually pleasing people. Oh, I'm either a people pleaser or I'm, I have that problem, people pleasing, right? So those are all indicators that the adapted child is active. And this adapted child is often the one that the poor behavior comes out and people come in, and I've had people come to my space the same as years ago I came into a space and said, fix me. And the truth is, there's nothing to fix. There's just embracing all your parts that got developed to help you survive, especially the adapted child part. The other piece that the adapted child is, it starts to, because emotions typically aren't welcomed, unhealthy ways of soothing, self-soothing strategies. So babies get soothed. And then somehow in the development, in some homes, the the child doesn't get soothed at all. It's very sad. There's babies that for years in orphanages used to die because they did not get touched and get the soothing that they needed when they were in distress. So you can see these unhealthy soothing strategies in our culture, overeating, overuse of alcohol, either illegal drugs or prescription drugs, gambling, all of the different addictions. Addictions are just an attempt to soothe the emotions that we as adults get scared of feeling. That's all they really are. And of course, relationship conflict is another indicator of the adapted child being active. So before we dive too deep into how to start healing, I just want you to take a couple deep breaths and go back to putting on your wise adult self, and just know that in most people, what's active is a curious, wanting to have fun, connection, being lively, natural child, and often a wounded child. And what most people see is an adapted child. And the adapted child often appears to be the adult in charge. You know, the mom or dad who's getting really angry says, ah, like that, right? Appears to be in charge, but actually it's an adapted child that's in charge, especially if the amygdala gets fired, right? So my work, I do weave what's going on with the nervous system, with distress, the additional distress. We don't have as much energy for us to get the adapted child to behave itself. And it's so, those neurons that get developed by the adapted child are pretty darn strong. It's reactions to as soon as they start to feel an uncomfortable emotion, the adapted child kicks in to protect. I want you to put on your wise adult self. We want to strengthen that self because that self embraces it all. Embraces the messiness, the pain, the fear, and is able to just give a holding tank as if you are a caring parent to self. Okay. The child wants simple things. It wants to be listened to. It wants to be loved. It may not even know the words, but it wants its rights protected and its self-respect unviolated. It needs you to be there. And Ron Kurtz is the founder of Hakomi. I want your wise adult self to get ready to notice the parts. So we've got the wise adult self here, and you can see there's the adapted child. And there's the next smallest is starting to adapt to the environment. And you can see this, the little, see the light in the, I couldn't get the head off too well, but you can see the light and the, I don't know, the vibrancy of the natural child, right? So I invite you again to feel your feet on the floor, and I want you to close your eyes, and I want the wise adult self to take in this knowing, all right? No child is born good or bad. Behavior can be challenging, but that does not affect children's rights to be protected, guided, and loved. Since parents choose to have children and raise them, they are accountable for managing their parental stress. Yes, parents are responsible. Doesn't mean they always manage it well, but they're responsible to manage their parental stress. It's not children's responsibility. Children have the right to have their human needs met: physical, mental, emotional, social, and spiritual. Yes. Breathe that in. Children have little or no control, choice, or decision-making power. If parents are unable to meet the needs of their children, they are expected to ask for help. Thank heavens I did. It changed the whole story of our family. Breathe that in. Children have little control, choice, or decision-making. Can't tell you how often clients come and think it was their fault, that they must have been bad in some way, to be abused or neglected, and it's not true. Parents are responsible to provide unconditional love, to love no matter what. Love is not earned. Love of a flower, a pet, or a child has no condition. This does not negate the need for guidance, developmentally appropriate expectations, and family rules. Yeah, we need to guide. We need to have some places of unconditional attention. But you are lovable the day you were born, and nothing changed about that. You are lovable. All right, so you can open your eyes, and we'll go on to the next way to start inner healing. And I forgot to mention that back here, I do recommend that if you find a picture of yourself as different stages and just take a look at the posture, the physicality, and remember what was going on during that time. Many of us had unconscious parents. Our parents were doing the best they could with what they had. They gave us the best they had, but there's still gaps often that are missing. So what was missing for this child? And it's never too late. And I love the some of the books that have been written about inner child work. And the most recent that's quite powerful is Oprah Winfrey and Dr. Bruce Perry's book, What Happened to You. A third way is to journal your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. I have journals, dozens of them from years, journaling what I thought, what I felt, and my behaviors. And my goal, I started having a goal of each night when I went to bed, I would say to myself, what was I pleased with around my parenting? And what would I like to improve the next morning? And each day allowed me to have a new beginning. Each night I would write down my thoughts, my feelings, behaviors. And if my behavior was off the mark for me, I would decide what I would need to do. And if I struggled too much, I made an appointment with my therapist. I've had about 150 hours of therapy. It's unusual. We have come a long, long way. I always recommend 6 sessions to begin with now. With the understanding of the nervous system, inner child work, healing trauma has advanced so incredibly. I hurt sometimes when I think that our people are walking around with these wounds and not doing anything about them. Number 4 is checking in with comforting messages. And again, I'm going to ask you to put your feet on the floor and take a breath. And this is again from take your breath, put on your wise adult self. And here are messages that you can give yourself. Ready? What happened to you was not your fault. You had no or little choice or control. You're saying this to your wounded child. If your adopted child will just let you in, just tell your adopted child, you did a good job. Now just take a step back. We might need some of the skills that you got to learn when you adapted to that environment you grew up in. But right now, I'm in charge. And I'm going to say what happened to you was not your fault. You had no or little choice or control. It's not your fault older people did not heal their wounded child and then they hurt you. That's not your fault. Just like anyone else, you deserve to have your human needs met. You need your human needs met. And what are those? There's quite a few. We've evolved. Connection to loving people, space to self, the freedom to have a place where your emotions are not only accepted, but welcome. That if you have fears, they are heard, to be seen, and to be acknowledged. You also want to tell your wounded inner child, you are not alone. I am now present. I am now aware. I am resilient. I, your adult wise self, has choices and support, and I can now protect you. I can establish boundaries. I can tell others yes, or I can tell them no, or I can say it depends. I have wisdom and resources I didn't have when you were little. And find the right support for you. The right support. You have to feel emotionally safe in order to heal. And I put a line through advice. Most advice comes from other people's, what they need for themselves. A little bit of advice now and then can be helpful. But typically good therapy helps you discover what's best for you. So signs of healing, just going to go through this quickly. Just like there's always time for pain, there's always time for healing. So here are the signs of when you're starting to heal. You notice your negative thoughts. You notice your wounded child. You admit to making mistakes, and you still risk making mistakes because you know you're going to learn from them. You respond more than you react. Doesn't mean that you won't ever have a reaction that's not a healthy one or doesn't hurt yourself or others, but it means you more often are able to respond. That means space before the thought and the behavior. You're physically healthier. You care for yourself. You know you're lovable. So you do some exercise, you eat healthy food, and you get enough sleep. And you have healthier relationships. You attract healthier relationships, and you know the relationships that are triggering your wounded child or your adopted child. And you have more calm, curiosity, joy, pleasure, all those good qualities, and you flourish more in your life when you do some healing work. Last but not least, please consider all of these ideas with an attitude of self-compassion. And what is self-compassion? It means I care. I care about my life and what I'm contributing to the world. And please know that it's okay to go to therapy. There's a lot of stigma around it. It just means you are saying, I want to spend some time exploring my internal world, because guess what? That's where you live all the time, every moment of every day, your internal world. I love working with dreams. Even at night, you have an internal world that is active. And if you'd like to bring order to it, again, consider 6 sessions of therapy.